You want to know which wide receivers to put in or out of your lineup for fantasy football in week 8. We're going to go game by game, going through every receiver that matters to tell you what we think about them. There are some players you really don't need to worry about. These guys are still must starts. Jamar Chase, Tyreek Hill, Stephon Diggs, Cooper Kupp, A.J. Brown, Amon-Ra St. Brown, Keenan Allen, Devontae Adams, and CeeDee Lamb. Before we talk about the players, let me remind you that this is the perfect time to sign up for Underdog because they have a new customer special. And this week it's Josh Allen on Thursday night. If he just gets 1 yard, you win. You get that pick for free. You can combine it with any of the other picks, including the ones we talk about that we like best this week, and you can triple your money. Just make sure when you sign up for Underdog for the first time, you use promo code ENDGAME or just click on the link down below in the description, and that will get you a 100% deposit match up to $500, along with that new customer special and all the other specials that they run throughout the week. All right, that Thursday night game for the Bucs. Let's start with Mike Evans. Had another good game. I mean, is he kind of bordering on you have to start territory?
Yeah, not like no doubt must start, but certainly it would be very hard to keep Mike Evans out of my lineup. I think if you got Mike Evans, you pretty much are starting him.
Yeah, too much upside. He's been consistent this year. And Buffalo defense not as scary anymore. Their top cornerback, Tre'Davious White, is out. So, yeah, I feel like Evans is still a very solid start. And what about Chris Godwin? Didn't get off to the best first couple of weeks this season, but he's coming on too.
Yeah, I didn't have a great week 7 like I expected. He was fine. I think he kind of goes back to being fine again because it looks like Mike Evans is healthy and he's Baker's number 1 guy. So I think you could start Chris Godwin, but just more of a floor play.
Agreed. Definitely more of a wide receiver 3 type. Still solid in PPR, but, just don't expect a huge game. Do you expect a huge game from Gabe Davis, who went back to doing nothing last week?
No, liked him last week. Don't like him this week. I'm not starting Gabe Davis this week.
You always know what you're getting into there. Boom or bust. I'm not feeling the boom either, so I'll say you should probably sit him. Texans have the luxury of taking on the Panthers this week, although it is on the road. Do you like Nico Collins?
Yeah, I think you got to feel pretty good about him. I'm not scared of this Panthers secondary. They're pretty decimated, not a great defense. I think Nico Collins is a solid start this week.
Yeah, I'm definitely liking Nico this week. He's been, a little up and down, but aren't most receivers other than the elite of the elite. And even then, they'll have bad games too. I think Nico is a very strong start. And now we have to talk about Tank Dell again. When last we saw him, it was a couple of weeks ago, because even before the bye, he was out with a concussion. Assuming he's going to be back now, if he is, are you playing him?
I mean, if you need to flex him, you can. Just understand what you're getting into. He could boom, he could bust. But if you need him as a flex, you can.
I like him because of the matchup, but again, not assuming he's going to go off. There's still a lot of mouths to feed here in this wide receiver room because Noah Brown is back, Dalton Schultz is coming on. I can't say I like him as much as I did a couple of weeks ago, but he is a flex option. And then Carolina, we know Adam Thielen is still the man. Must start.
Yeah, until we see something change, I think you got to just keep rolling with Adam Thielen.
Yeah, until this offense shows that they're not going to just target him, first, second, and third. Yeah, it's not a matchup that should scare you away from Thielen. We did see Jonathan Mingo get a little bit more involved before their bye. Is he a guy that you would consider?
No. If you want to stash him, sure, but don't start him.
He is an intriguing stash because we see they're supposedly shopping Terrace Marshall. Not sure if anybody's buying there. We could see him more involved as the season goes on, but it's too soon to trust him. All right, Rams going to take on the Cowboys. Cooper Kupp had his first down game since coming back this season, but I think you're still starting him. Is Puka now back to being a no-doubter after his explosion?
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to say after that big game, like, oh, he should be in the no doubt must starts. But remember, the week before, he didn't do that great. It's not a great matchup, although I will say the Cowboys secondary, not as good as it was earlier in the year when they had Diggs. But I still think if you got Puka, you're starting Puka.
Yeah, I'm not going to like Puka nearly as much this week, not just because, Cowboys are obviously a better defense, but also this is a team that plays a lot of man coverage. Puka's a little bit better in zone, or a lot better in zone. But I still think he's startable. He's got a floor, so decent start. And then on the Cowboys side, Michael Gallup, we've seen him get more involved, a lot of targets when we last saw the Cowboys on the field. Just not a lot of production.
Yeah, very boom bust guy here. Like, you want to put him in a flex and take your chances, go for it, but that's as strongly as I could say anything about Michael Gallup.
Yeah, and then this week where, again, no teams are off, I feel like you can do better than Gallup. And then Brandon Cooks, maybe not the target volume, but he did score a touchdown. I'm guessing you're probably still not in on Cooks.
Yeah, I'm not chasing that touchdown. Like you said, no buys this week. I'm not starting Brandon Cooks.
Now, we're going to need to see a lot more of him in terms of actually being involved in this offense. Now, I think you can pass on Cooks. Vikings taking on the Packers. Jordan Addison coming off a big Monday night. Can he repeat it against Green Bay?
Yes, this isn't a great matchup. Green Bay does have a good, strong secondary, but he's clearly the number one guy here. Has touchdown upside. I think, as a wide receiver 3, he's a good start.
Until Justin Jefferson comes back, he's the number one guy here. He's going to get a lot of targets. I like to see that he's being productive with those targets. So I can't say no doubt, but I think he's still a strong start here again. And then what about KJ Osborne? I mean, you just really can't ever get too excited about him, can you?
No. I mean, tough matchup. Has to score a touchdown. Not starting KJ Osborne.
Agree. Just not enough upside. Now this will be a tricky one, as it often is with Christian Watson. Left the game at the very end against Denver. Doesn't seem like he has anything serious going on, but he's going to be, as he always is, questionable. So do you risk it with him?
I mean, only if he's full practice this week and seems fine. I mean, it's a great matchup, too, against this Vikings secondary. But you know what I'm really worried about is Jordan Love. He's really looked bad the last 2 games. So unless we hear Christian Watson is just full go, fully healthy, if he's, on the injury report, not practicing much, I'm probably just going to bench him this week.
Yeah, what I'm worried about is the fact that he had a great matchup last week and didn't do anything and then got hurt again. It's like there's too much going against him. I feel like Watson now is a guy who's going to be mostly a mirage. Like, we have visions of these games in the past. We had a couple of big games, but it's mostly that we're just chasing the upside that doesn't materialize. Look, with all the question marks right now, I think I'm just going to bench him too. For that reason, I actually like Romeo Doubs because he is on the field, he is being productive, he is being targeted, and it's a good matchup, so I'm in on Romeo Doubs this week.
Yeah, I think especially if Christian Watson's out, you got to be in on Romeo Doubs. He's getting targets in the end zone as well, so I think, again, as like a wide receiver 3, I like Romeo Doubs.
And then Jaden Reed did score that lucky touchdown last week, although props to him for using those skills. If Christian Watson is out, he could get more targets. He gets to face the Vikings. Where does he fall for you?
Yeah, he would fall into that, start him if you need him category.
I mean, definitely could be a flex if you start 3 receivers. There's upside here, so not going to feel too strong about him, but I do kind of like him. Saints will be taking on the Colts. Some people are a little nervous about Chris Olave, especially after seeing what went on last Thursday night. Are you worried about Chris Olave, or is he still a strong start?
Still a strong start for me. It's the Colts. Got 15 targets. I still like Chris Olave a lot. I'm starting him.
Yeah, I'm starting, especially against the Colts. We've seen how they've given up huge games to number 1 receivers. Olave still is the number 1 receiver in this offense. Look, he might be disappointing if you drafted him really early, but he has not been bad. You've got to start Olave. Now, say you don't have to start Michael Thomas. He did score a touchdown last week, and he was involved. What do you think?
Praying for a touchdown if you start Michael Thomas. I'm not starting him.
I'm still not in on Michael Thomas either. Not the worst option if you want some sort of a floor in a PPR league, but that's about it. And then Rashid Shaheed, same thing with him every week, right? Boom, bust, roll the dice. Do you feel any better about him this week for any reason?
Not really. I mean, same thing. If you want to roll the dice and swing for the fences, go for it, but desperation flex.
Michael Pittman, just when you thought he was going to get shut out, toward the end of that game last week, had the long touchdown to save his fantasy day. What do you think he can do against this Saints pass defense?
I mean, you can't feel great. Got Marshawn Lattimore. Marshawn Lattimore is playing fantastic this year. We saw what they did to Calvin Ridley last week. Not going to say you have to outright bench Michael Pittman, but only start him if you need him.
Well, I know better now. I was out on Pittman last week because it was a tough defense. Again, same situation. I can't say you have to bench him because he could always do what he did, but still, he's not going to be my favorite target this week. And then Josh Downs also was not in on him. Had a big day, 125 yards and a touchdown. He's going to be picked up everywhere on waivers. If you pick him up, do you plug him in your lineup?
Yeah, not an auto plug into your lineup, but I do like him. Remember, I liked Christian Kirk last week because receivers out of the slot get targeted a lot against this defense because of Marshawn Lattimore. Josh Downs primarily plays out of the slot. I think this week he's a guy, if you need him, you can start him.
Yeah, I mean, don't want to just look at last week's stats and say I prefer Downs, but the situation means Downs is startable. So don't force him in there just because you added him off waivers, but he is somebody you could flex. Patriots at the Dolphins. This Patriots passing attack was basically down to two guys, and the main one was, again, Kendrick Bourne. Do we have to start taking Bourne more seriously?
I think we do. He's getting the targets. The offense maybe is getting better. We'll see. Not a guy I really want to start, but if you need to start him, you can.
I think he's definitely startable. Again, we're talking low-end wide receiver 3 here. Flex, and if you're in a less deep league or you just don't have a lot of depth there. So it's definitely not the worst option. He's getting targets. And then who got targets also last week was Pop. That's Demario Douglas, the rookie. I mean, he's a guy who looks like he's what Juju was supposed to be while Juju is out. Does he have a high enough floor, though?
Yeah, definitely riskier. Desperation to start only for me.
Yeah, I mean, look, anybody on the Patriots wide receiver core, you're still hoping that he has a big game, not assuming he will. So this week you shouldn't have to start a guy like him, but I don't mind stashing him. And then there's Jalen Waddle, who is better, but he still has yet to have a big game and kind of been disappointing lately. What do you think?
Yeah, I think he's still a guy you pretty much are starting in most cases, but obviously this is the Tyreek Hill show. He did leave that game briefly with back spasms, so that kind of hindered him, but he can always have a huge game. So if I've got Jalen Waddle, for the most part, I'm starting him.
Yeah, you still have got to have clearly superior options there, some stud receivers to just bench Waddle. So for the most part, you should be starting him. The battle for New York, receiver that starts with Garrett Wilson. Well, last we saw, he was putting up some good numbers. Zach Wilson not looking as bad. Is Garrett Wilson a strong start considering he's facing the Giants?
Yeah, I don't know about a strong start, but I certainly like him more than most weeks here. So I think if you got Garrett Wilson, you can start him.
Yeah, feeling a little better. Again, let's not go overboard here. Garrett Wilson is more on the high end of the wide receiver 3 spectrum for me. And then for the Giants, well, Wan'Dale Robinson getting targeted more regularly. It's a tough matchup, though.
Yeah, and didn't get targeted too much last week, and now against the Jets, I'm going to pass.
Yeah, I think you have to pass. There'll be days when you can flex him out, but this is not one of them. Jalen Hyatt, we finally saw him get a little bit more involved too. A couple of deep shots. Can he make a big play, a splash play here against the Jets?
I mean, he could, but it's the Jets. Not the defense I want to bet on that with, so I'm going to bench Jalen Hyatt.
Yeah, I was willing to take a chance last week because it was Washington, who gives up a ton of points to wide receivers. I'm not going to risk it this week with him. Jaguars at the Steelers. Let's talk Calvin Ridley. What do you do with this guy?
Well, I think this week you got to give him another go. It's the Steelers. This is not a strong secondary, not a strong defense. So I know it's frustrating. It's, nerve-wracking. But I think this week in this matchup, give him another go.
Yeah, I don't think we need to just outright bench him because he's coming off a bad game. Because remember, before that, he was coming off a big game. So sure, he'll be frustrating, but you can't just give up. It's a good matchup. Pretty much, he's a starter in your lineup. And then Christian Kirk, I mean, do we even need to question at this point?
No, at this point, Christian Kirk almost an auto start. If you got Kirk, just leave him in your lineup.
George Pickens, coming off back-to-back 100-plus yard games. Return of Deontay Johnson didn't hurt him at all. Do you think he can get by with another one against the Jags?
Yeah, it's the Jags. They give up a lot through the air. I know they didn't give up a lot to the Saints, but that's Derek Carr. So, yeah, against the Jaguars, I think if you got Pickens, start him.
I definitely want to start him this week. Talk about that a little bit more when we do our boom video, but for now I'll just say George Pickens is a guy I want to find a place for him in my lineup. And then what about Deontay Johnson? Wasn't too bad coming back in his first game off of IR. Is he also a guy who's a strong consideration?
Yeah, more or less so in PPR leagues, though. I think we see more of him this week. I think he has a better game, but not really a guy that's going to have a ton of upside. So, in your PPR leagues, a startable player as a floor play.
Agree. I mean, I'm going to like Pickens more than Johnson, but I still feel pretty good about these receivers. So I think Deontay's is strong. PPR league, I think wide receiver too. Falcons going to take on the Titans. Let's start with Drake London. Finally finding a little bit of a consistency here. Do you keep rolling with him?
Yeah, I do. I like him a lot in this matchup. It's the Titans. They're still one of the worst pass defenses in the league. He's getting involved. Desmond Ridder's throwing the ball more. I love Drake London this week.
Gotta like Drake London this week. You gotta keep trying to start receivers against this Titans defense because it still is a funnel pass defense, and that's why Drake London is a strong start. And again, I'll take a look at the early lines on Underdog. If you do those pick'ems, right now, 49.5 yards. I think he's easily going higher than that. He's been higher than that even in just okay matchups, and we saw a couple weeks ago what he did against Washington. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, this is the perfect time to check out Underdog. Just click on the link down below in the description or go to Underdog after you download the app. When you sign up, make sure you use promo code ENDGAME because that gets you a 100% deposit match up to $500. And you can take that London pick if you're feeling that he's going to go higher also and combine it with the new customer special. You get a free pick essentially because Josh Allen just needs 1 yard on Thursday night. You combine those two and you can triple your money right away, along with the fact you've already doubled your money just for signing up. And then on Tennessee side, DeAndre Hopkins, still the guy there, but he may have a rookie quarterback throwing it to him.
Yeah, cannot start DeAndre Hopkins this week. Let me see how it looks with this rookie quarterback. Not even a great matchup for him, honestly, with A.J. Terrell. I would like to bench DeAndre Hopkins if I can.
Yeah, and look, he really hasn't had much of a ceiling, even with Ryan Tannehill. There's way too much risk here. I don't want to take the 0. I have to bench Hopkins too. Eagles going to take on the Commanders. We're still waiting for the Devontae Smith blow-up game again. Does it happen this week?
I mean, man, this is about as good as it gets for a matchup. The Commanders are just terrible against the pass. I got to put Devonta Smith in my lineup again this week.
Well, if you look back a couple of weeks ago when these two teams met, he had a pretty good game, 78 yards and 7 catches. I'm still not keeping him on my bench. I know we could have kind of lackluster game after lackluster game. There will be a game where he goes off, and you don't want him on your bench when that happens. And then what about Terry McLaurin? He's looking pretty good lately. He also didn't get shut out when they played the Eagles. So is he still a solid receiver?
Yeah, it looks like he's finally emerging as the true number 1 here. I don't love him this week. I don't think he has tremendous upside, but I think for the most part, you're starting Terry McLaurin.
Yeah, you don't love going against big play Slay on the other side. This Eagles defense is rounding into shape, but I do think he's still startable because of the target share. And then Curtis Samuel didn't come through just when, of course, I was all in on him last week. Do you think he can produce against Philadelphia?
Yeah, don't love him this week in this matchup. I mean, if you need him, you can start him, but that's about it.
Always kind of a flex-worthy candidate, but not my favorite pick either. Browns going to Seattle to take on the Seahawks. Still not sure what the quarterback situation is there, but either way, what do we do with Amari Cooper?
It's another good matchup, but man, I mean, are we going to see a beat up Deshaun Watson? Are we going to see P.J. Walker? I'm not as excited about Amari Cooper as I have been most of the season, but I still think in most cases you're probably starting Amari Cooper.
Yeah, last week should have been a big Cooper week, and it wasn't. This week could be a decent Cooper week. I don't love him, but I do still think he's at least on the radar. He's startable because he's got that big play upside. DK Metcalf is going to be a tricky one. Didn't play in week 7. Going to be questionable, most likely heading into week 8 with that hip injury. So if he plays, do you play him?
Yeah, I think you pretty much have to. I don't love the matchup. I mean, I know you could say what Pittman did, but come on, that was like a 75-yard catch and run. It wasn't like Pittman went off before that. But it's DK Metcalf. I think for the most part, if you have him, you're starting him.
Yeah, for the most part, if he's good to go. I mean, it is a tough Browns defense, but They did give up 2 long touchdowns to receivers. If DK is fine, you got to treat him the way that you normally would. So if he plays, you're probably playing him. What about Tyler Lockett? Did not take advantage of last week's matchup. If DK doesn't play, does that make you feel better about him?
I don't know, because I thought with DK out last week he could have a big week, and he didn't. That was against the Cardinals. This is against the Browns. I mean, you're probably still playing Tyler Lockett, but I'm getting a little nervous about Tyler Lockett.
You got to wonder just a little bit if this is the start of the JSN takeover. I'm not going that far, but I also say I don't love Lockett this week. I'm considering him really more of a flex option. And then Jackson Smith and Jigba finally had his first good game in the NFL. What do you think as far as this matchup? Again, I don't love it, but what if DK is out?
Yeah, even if DK is out, I mean, that was the Cardinals. This is the Browns. I'm not ready to start him yet.
Yeah, I don't think we need to get too carried away because it's a very different situation here. So, very risky flex. Then we got Ravens, Cardinals, Zay Flowers. Not a big game last week, but they really didn't need to pass the ball that much. So, is this a bounce back for him in terms of fantasy production?
Yeah, I think so. It's the Cardinals. He's involved. He's catching passes down the field. I think Zay Flowers a solid start this week.
I think he's going to be an excellent start. I'm feeling this could be a big Zay Flowers week, maybe the biggest one he's had yet. And the other side, we got Hollywood Brown, the former Raven. What does he do against his former team?
Yeah, I really need Kyler Murray back. But, I mean, it's not a good matchup for him. You know, he's had some good games, some bad games. I'm going to put him in the start him if you need him category this week.
Yeah, exactly. Risky. He's got upside. I prefer to view him more as a flex in your typical 12-team league. So let's just hope that he can do something until the quarterback switch is made. What about Michael Wilson, the rookie? Also did not take advantage of a good matchup. He was barely even targeted until the very end of that game.
Yeah, now a tougher matchup. Desperation only. I'd prefer not to.
Yeah, I'm just going to outright sit him. There's too many other options this week. Michael Wilson, I'll just pass. And then I can pretty easily pass on Rondale Moore also.
Same. Not starting Rondale Moore.
Chiefs taking on the Broncos again. This time it's going to be in Mile High. Rashee Rice is coming on. Does he continue against Denver?
I think so. I will say, I don't think Denver is quite as bad as we thought they were, or at least they've gotten a little bit better, but man, the way he's used, what he can do with the ball in his hands, I think Rashee Rice is a strong start this week.
Still a strong start. He's going to be the technically number one receiver there. Not a matchup to be worried about. So I like Rashee Rice again this week. And then I feel like we need to talk about McCole Hardman back in Kansas City. Some people are scooping him up, and maybe some buzz about him becoming involved. What do you think?
Yeah, not doing it. Hard pass on McCole Hardman.
I mean, I don't really remember too many times the last couple of years when he was in Kansas City that I wanted to start him in fantasy, so it's not going to start now. Now, Cortland Sutton for Denver, he's just been rock solid. Every week it's like he's putting up some points. Could he do it again against Kansas City?
Yeah, it's not a good matchup. This secondary is really good. This defense has been really good, but he's been really good too, and he's getting touchdowns, getting end zone targets. Not going to say you have to start him, but if you need him, you can start him.
Yeah, he did reach the end zone against Kansas City last time. He's been scoring touchdowns. So at the very least, he does give you a decent floor. So don't love him, but I do think he's startable. And then there's Jerry Jeudy. What do you think?
Yeah, not starting Jerry Jeudy. It's just not a lot of upside here right now. Not starting him.
Yeah, I don't know what it would take for me to consider starting Jerry Jeudy or having him on any of my rosters. Nothing's going to change my mind this week, though. And then we got Bengals, Niners. T. Higgins did come back before the bye, didn't do a whole lot. Does he get ramped up enough that you feel that he's still pretty much a must start?
I think so. And look, this Niners, I keep talking about it. Like, if they have a weakness, it's big plays in the secondary. We saw that on Monday night. I think we see a good Bengals offense. I think they come out of the bye ready to go. T. Higgins healthy. If I got T. Higgins, I'm starting him.
Yeah, with a week of rest, T. Higgins should be fully healthy. Joe Burrow back to full health. Like you said, if Jordan Addison can go off against the Niners secondary, why can't T. Higgins? I think he's pretty much a no-doubter. And then on the other side, Brandon Ayuk. We know Debo is not going to play again. So is Ayuk also a guy that you just put in and don't think about it?
Yeah, I mean, you could think about it a little bit, like if you have better options, but for the most part, you're probably starting Brandon Ayuk.
Yeah, I mean, too much upside there for me. I think if I have Ayuk, I want him in there. Bears at the Chargers. We're going to see Bajent again. Look, he wasn't too bad in his first NFL start, and DJ Moore did something. Can he do more against this Charger secondary?
I mean, he should be able to. This is a pretty bad secondary. I mean, not a lot of upside here right now because, of course, the ADOT, the yardage is very low. But, this is a good matchup for DJ Moore. I think this week you could start him.
It'll probably take like a long catch and run or a busted coverage or something for him to have a big play, a big game, like you said. But he's at least startable now. I feel better about him. This Chargers secondary has just been bad. So I'll at least say he could be flexed. And on the other side, Josh Palmer continues to get some big chunk plays down the field against Chicago. Could he do it again?
Yeah, he certainly could. I mean, it's not a guy you have to start, but if you need to start him this week, he's a good start.
Well, I'll say, though, maybe the floor isn't quite as high as DJ Moore. I think the ceiling definitely is. So I like Palmer as more like a wide receiver 3 type. Monday night ends with the Raiders at the Lions. Yes, you're still rolling with Devontae Adams, no doubt. What about Jacoby Myers? I mean, he's been just as good, sometimes even better.
Yeah, he almost feels like a no doubt too. I mean, it's not a great matchup against the Lions, but does it really matter? He's getting so many targets. I think if you got Jacoby Myers, for the most part, you're starting him.
Yeah, and should add, I mean, he put up numbers last week with Brian Hoyer quarterback. Hoping to get Jimmy Garoppolo back. Didn't think I'd be saying that, but yeah, if so, Myers is a really strong start. And then for Detroit, let's talk Josh Reynolds. Just because he does face the Raiders, is he streamable?
Man, even when they were like getting blown out and throwing a lot and coming back, only 2 catches last week. I mean, he could score, he could get involved, but you got to be desperate. I'm not starting him.
Yeah, gonna agree. Again, no team's on bye. Sun God is healthy. You shouldn't be starting Reynolds. But what about Jameson Williams? Everyone's tantalized by the talent. You see someone you take a shot on?
I mean, if you're desperate and you want to swing for the fences, go for it. Just know you could strike out and get a 0.
Yeah, I'm still not there with him. We already mentioned a couple of receivers like him who are kind of boom bust. Rashid Shaheed, Gabe Davis. I think I'd take those guys over Williams. Now you know how we feel about all the wide receivers that might matter for fantasy football in Week 8. We got you covered at running back, quarterback, tight end. Everything that you need to know to win is in this playlist right here.